February 14th, 1943. Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. The North African wind carries dust like smoke, stinging the faces of the young American soldiers of the 1st Infantry Division. They crouch in rocky gullies, watching the glint of metal on the horizon. German panzers moving in formation, sunlight flashing off their armor like the blade of a knife. Private James "Red" Morris, 21, from Ohio, clutches a long green tube with both hands. It's new, experimental. The officers call it the M1 rocket launcher, but everyone else just calls it the bazooka. Looks like a plumber's nightmare, Red mutters, checking the wire leads dangling from the firing mechanism. Beside him, Sergeant Will Daniels smirks. Yeah? Just hope it works better than it looks. The ground trembles as the 1st Panzer III crests the hill, its turrets sweeping left and right. German infantry follow behind, confident, precise. Veterans of years of blitzkrieg victories. They had crushed France, stormed across the Balkans, and now faced these new American recruits who barely knew their weapons. From the German side, Lieutenant Erich Vogel peers through his binoculars. He sees the strange tubes slung across American shoulders and laughs. Kinderwaffen, he says to his loader, children's weapons. The Panther crews, hardened and dismissive, had already begun calling the bazooka the Spielzeugrohr, the toy pipe. But the laughter doesn't last long. Red steadies the launcher on his shoulder as the Panzer closes in, its gun swiveling toward a pinned-down American jeep. Now or never, he whispers. Sergeant Daniels nods. He presses the trigger. Whoosh! A trail of smoke and fire leaps from the tube. The rocket arcs slams into the Panzer's side armor and explodes. A moment of silence. Then a burst of orange fire from the tank's engine deck. The hatch flies open, and 2 German crewmen scramble out, engulfed in smoke. The American line erupts in cheers. Red lowers the empty tube, stunned. It worked, he mutters. It actually worked. Word spreads fast. Across the front, the weapon that looked like a toy is suddenly feared. But for now, it's just the beginning. The prototype, the first spark of an idea that would later become one of the most effective infantry weapons of the war. In Berlin, reports of this strange American weapon reached the Oberkommando des Heeres, the German Army High Command. Engineers scoff. A novelty, one notes, useless beyond short range. They file the report away. The Reich's tanks, after all, are invincible. But war has a way of humbling certainty. June 10th, 1944. St. Lo, Normandy. The hedgerows are thick and green, hiding death in every shadow. The invasion beaches are secured, but inland, it's a different kind of hell. Close-range fighting, tank engines echoing through the French countryside like thunder rolling over hills. Private Red Morris is older now, battle-hardened. His uniform is stained with mud and cordite. The bazooka on his shoulder, now an M1A1, the improved model, feels almost like an extension of his body. Panthers, whispers his squad leader, crouched beside him in a hedgerow ditch. At least 2, maybe 3. Keep your heads low across the field. The ominous growl of Maybach engines grows louder. Panther Ausf. The tanks of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend advance cautiously, their long 75mm KWK 42 guns sweeping side to side. The Germans are confident, too confident. To them, Shermans are still Tommy Cookers, their shells bouncing harmlessly off German armor. One Panther commander laughs into his intercom. Forward. The Americans have nothing that can stop us, but as his tank pushes through a gap in the hedgerow, Red sees it. The massive machine emerges, dark and menacing, its gun barrel swinging toward the road. He exhales slowly, loading a new M6A1 rocket into the tube. He takes aim, no time for fear. The rocket streaks through the fog and foliage, striking just above the Panther's track. A flash, then chaos. The tank shudders to a halt, black smoke pouring from its flank. German infantry scatter for cover. Inside the burning tank, Lieutenant Vogel, the same man who once called the weapon a toy, realizes the truth too late. His voice crackles over the radio. Achtung! Amerikanische Raketenwerfer. Warning, American rocket launchers. Within days, the joke weapon has become a whisper of dread across the front. German units start warning each other to watch for bazooka men hiding in the hedgerows. Captured Wehrmacht reports reveal shock. The light, handheld launcher can destroy tanks from 100 yards or more, especially when aimed at the side or rear armor. German engineers scramble to examine captured examples, fascinated by the simplicity of its design. They call it primitive, aber tödlich, primitive but deadly. In a workshop near Hanover, a group of engineers from Rhine-Metall-Borsig gather around a captured M1 Bazooka. One of them, Dr. August Coenders, studies the firing circuit and the shaped charge warhead. Simple, too simple, he mutters admiringly. We can make it larger. And they do. Within months, the German army fields its answer, the RPZ-B-54 Panzerschreck, the tank terror. It's almost identical to the American design, only heavier, deadlier, and longer ranged. But on the fields of Normandy, the Americans already own the psychological edge. Every Panther crew that burns adds to a growing legend. The toy has become a symbol of defiance, of GIs taking down monsters with nothing but grit, courage, and a steel tube. As the summer drags on, the laughter fades from German lips. Fear has taken its place. October 1944. Aachen, Germany. Smoke drifts across the ruins of the first German city to face Allied assault. The streets are narrow, the walls shattered, and every corner hides an ambush. Rain mixes with dust, turning rubble into gray sludge. From a blown-out apartment window, Gefreiter Otto Kruger kneels behind a jagged windowsill. Slung across his shoulder is a new weapon, the Panzerschreck, born from the very thing the Germans once mocked. Its tube is longer, heavier, fitted with a crude blast shield welded to the front. Below him, a column of Shermans and half-tracks grind forward through the debris. Kruger whispers to his loader, "Wait for the lead tank. Hold steady." The launcher belches smoke and flame. The rocket streaks across the street, slamming into the Sherman's turret. The explosion echoes through the narrow street like thunder. Flames rise. The German imitation works, but at a cost. The weapon is unwieldy, its backblast dangerous. Crews wear gas masks and gloves to avoid burns. It's powerful, but not elegant. Not American simple. On the other side of the ruined city, Lieutenant Joe Ekins, the Firefly gunner turned infantry support officer, hears the explosion. He's seen what the Germans can do with stolen ideas. "They learn fast," he mutters, ducking under fire. But we learn faster. His platoon's bazooka team takes position behind a collapsed stone wall. Two tanks rumble through the smoke, a Panther and a Stug 3. The gunner, Corporal Frank Daly, loads a rocket, sweat cutting lines through the dust on his face. "Range 60 yards, Ekins calls. Daly fires. The rocket hits the Panther low, punching through the thinner side armor. The explosion lifts the tank slightly off its treads before it settles, burning fiercely. Ekins turns to his men. "They can copy the weapon," he says. but they can't copy the men behind it. Across Europe, the bazooka versus Panzerschreck duel becomes a brutal equalizer. In the Ardennes, German soldiers ambush American columns with their new launchers. In return, U.S. infantry ambush the ambushers, firing from snowbanks, barns, and ditches. Each side is now hunting the other with the same invention. But one difference remains: American logistics. Thousands of M1A1s and improved EM9 bazookas flood the front. The weapon that once looked like a toy is now everywhere. From the snows of Belgium to the ruins of the Siegfried Line. By winter, even elite German crews, once the kings of armored warfare, speak of it in hushed tones. Tank commanders order infantry to walk ahead of their vehicles to check for bazooka traps. A cruel irony. The tanks meant to inspire terror now move with fear. In bunkers and factories, German engineers continue tinkering with their Panzerschrecks, adding shields, adjusting sights. But nothing can stop the tide. The Reich is crumbling, and its borrowed innovation has come too late. Still, in the ruins of a shattered Germany, one truth becomes clear. The weapon they mocked, the toy pipe, has reshaped modern warfare forever. December 19th, 1944. Bastogne, Belgium. The Battle of the Bulge is in full fury. Snow falls in heavy silence, blanketing the Ardennes forest, while the sound of distant artillery rolls like thunder across the frozen hills. The roads are clogged with wrecked trucks, frozen corpses, and burning tanks, German and American alike. In a battered foxhole on the town's outskirts, Sergeant Will Daniels, now a veteran of Africa, Italy, and France, cradles his bazooka like a lifeline. Beside him crouches Private Red Morris, older, quieter, but still the same man who first fired the weapon in Tunisia. Their breath fogs in the cold air as they listen. The low growl of tank engines echoing through the trees. Daniels murmurs, "That's no Sherman." A massive shape appears through the snowfall. A Panther tank, its dark cross barely visible beneath a coat of whitewash. The barrel swings slowly, searching for movement. Behind it, German infantry advance cautiously, rifles at the ready. Red steadies the tube on his shoulder. 60 yards, he whispers. Just like Normandy. Daniels nods. Make it count. The rocket fires, a brilliant white flash cutting through the gray storm. It streaks across the field and strikes the Panther's lower hull. The explosion punches through the armor with a sharp crack that echoes across the valley. Flames burst from the engine deck. German soldiers scatter. "Hit!" Daniels shouts, reloading. "Again!" A second rocket slams into the turret, and the Panther is gone, consumed by fire and smoke. For hours, the American paratroopers and infantry hold the line with little more than rifles, machine guns, and these strange green tubes. Each bazooka round fired in Bastogne is another reminder of what the Germans once dismissed. In the snow-choked forests of Belgium, the weapon that began as an experiment now decides the fate of battles. Across the front, reports pour in. Bazooka teams ambushing King Tigers in the dark, striking from alleys and barnyards, crippling convoys, halting armored pushes that once seemed unstoppable. In captured diaries, German tankers describe the terror of hearing the faint hiss before impact, the invisible killer in the hedgerows, now in the snow. By March 1945, the Rhine is crossed. The German armored divisions that once rolled across Europe are in ruins. Burned-out tanks litter the fields. The Luftwaffe is gone. The Panzerschrecks lie abandoned in the mud. Atop a hill overlooking the Ruhr Valley, Sergeant Daniels stands beside his old comrade, Red Morris. Their bazooka rests against a tree, its paint chipped, barrel blackened from months of use. Daniel smirks. Funny thing, huh? They used to call it a toy. Red nods, staring at the horizon where smoke from the dying Reich drifts skyward. Yeah, he says quietly. Not much laughing left now. The camera pans wide, rows of Sherman tanks rumbling eastward, soldiers trudging through the mud, smoke rising from distant cities. The hum of engines fades into the sound of wind over empty fields. The silence of a continent that has finally run out of war. The bazooka, once doubted, once ridiculed, now stands as one of the most iconic infantry weapons of the 20th century. A symbol of American ingenuity, of simplicity turned lethal. It bridged the gap between courage and survival, giving every soldier, no matter how outgunned, the power to stare down a tank and live to tell the tale. As the war ends, thousands of bazookas are discarded, their steel tubes rusting in depots across Europe. Yet for the men who carried them, men like Red and Daniels, the weapon remains a memory etched in smoke and fire. In later years, German veterans would recall their first encounter with it. The shock, the disbelief, the laughter turned to silence. Because when history's mightiest war machines met a so-called toy, they learned a brutal truth. Sometimes, the simplest weapon is the one that changes everything.